Good news, everyone. Pernak here, coming at you with another episode of Printing with Matt Pernak. Alright, today's episode, I'm going to be doing Drypoint. And Drypoint is in the Italio school, so meaning you normally need a press to do so. And since I've got this new press, this is another chance for me to kind of play with it and use it a little bit and learn more about it. Drypoints need a press to do. You could try them by hand. And I've seen some people do them by hand. They say it's a lot of work because you got to use so much pressure to do this. So since Drypoints are in Italio, and how Italio printmaking processes differ from relief printmaking processes. So with relief, let's see here, where's my block? So, I mean, this is a relief. As you can see here, when you carve it, you can see that the image is elevated from the rest of the surface where that's all carved away. That's why it's called relief, because it sits on the top. Now, Italio, which includes the classes, there's a lot of different, from mezzotints, dry points, etchings, engravings, and there's a few others, collagraphs even, I believe, is one, and there's a few others that are grouped into this. But basically the thing is, instead of putting your ink on top and then pressing the paper to it, you remove material from a flat surface. Typically they would use metal plates. Remove that area with a scribe. It's very similar to the tools that you use for printmaking, which they call them burins right here. This is a standard mushroom handle one, and they will have different types. Let's see if we can get it to focus on it. You can see the lozenge on the end here, and you basically put that on your surface and you push with this and it removes the material. You then coat the entire plate with ink and then you rub off the top layer of ink so that the ink stays only in your incised lines. And that's how Italio. And then you put it through a press and that paper gets pressed on so heavily with so much pressure that it pulls the ink out of those recessed lines. So that's what Drypoint is. It's a version of that. What makes Drypoint a little bit different is that while engravings and etchings use lines and everything, Drypoint is done using a simple tool called a scribe. Now there are a multitude of other tools from roulettes and all sorts of other things that do make marks on the plate. Many of those can be used in engravings and other things too. But as you can see, this is a standard twisted scribe. And you can see it's called twisted because it looks twisted. And you basically scratch the surface of your plate. And what that does is it creates a little burr. Instead of removing material, it causes a little burr to come up on both sides like this, and that burr is where the ink gets caught. So Drypoints, you only get so many printings with them because eventually those burrs get pushed down and go away, and you cannot get the same clarity of prints that you can. Depending on how much pressure you use, you can get anywhere from 5, 10, I mean, I've seen people get like 50 Drypoints, but you could tell towards the end of that 50 that the image has changed slightly because of the burrs are no longer there. To do Drypoint, we're going to need several things today. First off, my press. I'm going to be using my press. You have to have a lot of pressure, and an etching press is the best way. One with 2 rollers like this little mini one here that I have. And we're also going to need, traditionally, people have used zinc or copper plates. And if you're going to use a zinc plate or a copper plate, Keep in mind that, you know, they're not super like polished smooth unless you buy polished copper. And if you're buying polished copper, be careful. It's very, very expensive. While you might get a little 4x6 plate for a couple dollars for copper, let's say $4, polished copper is going to be like $12. It's like 3 times the price. But people also use plastic like plexiglass and acrylic and things like that. I'm going to be using these from Akua, mostly because I wanted to get another brand. They did not have them at the art store, so this is what I was stuck with. Same type of thing. There's 3 of them in this package. They're 6x8, and we'll use that. You need your, like I said, twisted scribe. Of course, you're going to use paper, and you want to use a really good absorbent thick paper. You don't want to try using the Japanese ones. They don't work that well. I am going to be using this, and this is BFK. I don't know if you could see that there. Reeves BFK, that's their watermark right there. It's 100% cotton mold made paper. It is by far the most popular printmaking paper, I believe, in America. At least when I worked at Daniel Smith, we would sell tens of thousands of sheets of this a month. Not the store, but as a company across our catalog and our online. That's how much we sold. Our second best paper was Stonehenge, which is my other favorite to use. You're also going to need a dish to soak your paper. Because this is an intaglio process, soaking your paper is very important. So I have a dish over here filled with water to soak it. I'm also going to need an image. I've got this one right here. I'm going to use this for those of you unfamiliar with this image. It is the Spirit of Detroit. It's a statue that's in the front of the Kobo. It's kind of a real, for Detroiters, it is something that everyone identifies with. So when one of our sports teams goes to the playoffs, guess what? He starts wearing one of their jerseys. You're also going to need something to apply your ink with. I'm going to use this little 3M squeegee. You can simply use a piece of chipboard or a little piece of cardboard. It doesn't matter, it just needs to be flat. Also going to need smooth newsprint. You can try rough, but the smooth works much better. Back in the day, people used to not even buy newsprint. They would just use phone books. Also going to need tarlatan. For those of you who are unfamiliar with tarlatan, this is what tarlatan is right here. I buy it by the yard, most places do. You can buy, Akua also makes what they call a wiping cloth. It's not nearly as much. It's basically this. As you can see, it's very transparent and translucent. It's cheesecloth. But the difference between cheesecloth and tarlatan is this is stiff tarlatan. It has been starched. So it's really stiff, and you're going to help use this to help apply your ink. Set that off to the side. And the ink I'm going to use today, let's see if I can find it. I'm going to be using Akua Intaglio ink. So this is a soy-based ink. It dries by absorbing into the paper, unlike most of my other inks that I use. Oil-based relief ink dries by emulsification, which is the hardening of the oil. Oxygen hits the oil, changes the chemical state of the oil, and makes it hard, which makes it a hard film, which is how it dries. Water-based ink, water simply evaporates out of the ink and leaves behind the film. If it's acrylic, it leaves behind acrylic. This stuff, the oil does not dry. In fact, I don't believe this stuff ever dries. It's one of the reasons it's very popular with monoprinting too, because this stuff is just really good for it. It doesn't dry out. It's pretty decently thick. It's real stringy. I mean, I haven't even opened this can yet. I've used this stuff before in the past, and I do like Akua. One of the downsides to it is sometimes it's definitely, boy, this is a little bit, let's see here. I'm gonna loosen up the camera just a little bit. As you can see, it's very runny compared to most of the other inks. It's not very thick, even though most etching ink is super thick, which is how most etching ink is. Most etching ink is even thicker than relief ink, mostly because it needs to be really stiff to get in there. For some reason, this stuff isn't, and I've never had a problem using it for dry points, not having it be real super stiff. So let's get ready and started here. All right, to get started, we're going to take our image. I've got my image right here. And then we're going to take our plates right here and take out one of them because I got 3. And it's got a film on it. You don't need the film. Take the film off and throw it away. And it's on both sides, it looks like. It doesn't matter if you keep both sides or one, but the more film that you take off, the clearer it is. And then you set it on top of your image. And that's what makes printing on the plastic plate so nice, is that you can see right through it. Now, if you choose to, if you're doing this on copper or something else, you can't see through your image. So a lot of times what you'll do is you'll trace your image using graphite paper onto the thing, and then you'll etch it. So basically, or you could sit here if you wanted to, you could draw on here with a marker and do this, but we're not going to. The one thing I wish I did have was a roulette. Instead of trying to describe a roulette, I'm just going to show you what one looks like. So this is one of my printmaking books. As you can see, here's the image. This is a roulette, this is a roulette, and that is a roulette. And I believe that's even a roulette right there. These are just going to be your different scribes, mezzotint marker, a lot of these things you don't need to use. And it's basically they do different marks. This one's an irregular one. So if you do it like this, it's going to change your marks, what you'll do on a page. So if you look at it here, you notice you just kind of roll it around there and it will make marks, irregular marks for you. You can even do the same thing with a Dremel tool if you have a Dremel. I just figured using this book is easier to show you than trying to describe the tools when I don't have said tools. Now you can choose to either do a couple of different things here. Like I said, you can choose to draw this out with a magic marker. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that with a magic marker. Okay, now I've gone through and I've drawn him up, and these are just going to be rough ideas of how to do this. Now, I'm going to take my twisted scribe here. Still got that on there. Some people will put tape on them and make them a little bit more comfortable. I tried using a pencil holder, you know, with pencil grips. This thing's too small. Basically, what you're going to do is you're just going to scratch it. Like this. I'm making multiple scratches as I'm doing this. Now, you can probably do it with one scratch, but just keep in mind it looks like a pencil line, and I'm trying to get more of a sketch-like look to this. And keep in mind, all these marks show up. So if you make a mistake or something, it's going to show up on there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to scratch all this up for you guys. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've scratched up the entire surface of this. Let's see if we can see. You can kind of see some of the scratches there. All this black will disappear, mostly because it's just not going to show up. Because I am going to... This is just rubbing alcohol. And that's one of the things I like about this ink, is that it comes off. Wow, this sponge is really dry. That's why it's doing that. One of the things I really like about those pens, is that they do that. I mean, you don't have to clean off the ink. I'm just choosing to do so. And plus, alcohol dries really fast. I just don't want to have this ink on the plate, truly, because I don't want it to get onto my print, because it's not an archival ink. So it doesn't work that great. So now that I've got this all scratched up, you can see the image a lot better now. And now that I've got this, let's set that off to the side and pull over my water in my dish. I kept trying to use my little thing that I have, the palette, Stay Wet palette I have, but every time I try to move it with water, it just spills everywhere because it's not very stable. So I'm going to take my paper and I'm going to put it actually in the water. Unlike most of the times when I soak my paper, I don't soak it for very long. In fact, when I do my relief printmaking, I actually prefer to just run it under the tap, under a cold tap water, and until it starts to lose its crispness, I should say, and then I pull it out and squeegee it off and then dry it off. And what I'm going to do is we're going to put these in here. We're going to let them soak for at least 15 to 20 minutes or up to a half hour, whichever you prefer, whichever you think is going to work the best. You're not going to ruin the paper by soaking it too long. So I'm just going to soak some of my paper here. I'm not going to do all of it, just because I don't see a point to. Well, I only got 2 sheets left. There's only 8 sheets here, so I folded my 22 by 30 inch piece of Reeves BFK, because you buy it in full-size sheets, down to 8ths. So you fold it in half, then fold it in half again, and then fold each of those quarters into halves, and you get this nice size of paper. And we're going to sit here and let this soak for a good 20 minutes. Alright, while I'm letting my paper soak over here on the desk, I'm going to start doing some other prep because I can do that. I'm going to need a pair of scissors. I'm going to need my tarlatan. As you can see, this is 2 yards of tarlatan. It's pretty big. I don't need this much. I'll probably say I would probably need about a square foot, ballparking it. So I'm going to cut my tarlatan to a size I'm going to use. And it's about 1.5 feet, square 1.5 feet. I'm actually going to do 2 of them. Going to cut me 2 pieces. And I don't care what it, it doesn't matter that it's not, you can see that this is so not straight. It doesn't matter. I don't care about that because it's, basically this stuff gets ruined. And that's what we use it for. We use it for wiping the plates. I'm just going to fold this back up and set it off to the side. And so I got that prepped. I've got 2 pieces. I'm going to use 2 pieces because it's always good to have 2. And then I'm going to let my paper finish soaking, and then we're going to come back and do our printing. Now there is a tiny bit of prep I forgot to do for this. And we're going to do that right now. There we go. So let's just see what I'm doing here. So there's that. It's basically these edges are sharp. So we want to, let's give me a better view here, more wide view. And so you'll take a file or sandpaper or something. I've got this weird little thing that I got. It's basically a micro abrasive. And I'm just going to go like this. I'm just going to set it here. And do this. And just kind of lightly round off the edges. You want to be careful not to do it too much. We got that. And then I'm going to round the corners too a little bit. I'm actually just going to take it like this. And the reason we're doing this is because the paper is going to be wet. It is not as strong as it is dry. And we're putting it through a lot of pressure with the press. And something with sharp edges like this can rip the paper, and we don't want it to rip through the paper, which is the only reason we're doing this. I've actually had it happen to me before too, when using copper. This is more important if you're using copper or what you call or zinc or whatever metal you're using. Alright, now that I've soaked my paper thoroughly, I'm going to take it out. Let's show this process here too. I'm going to take my paper out right here. Then I'm going to use my squeegee. I'm going to squeegee the water off. Then I'm going to pick up that excess water here with just a microfiber towel that I have. Just a towel. Doesn't matter what kind of towel it is. I'm going to do that for each and every one of these sheets. I'm going to take my paper and stick it in a plastic bag. I use these because I have them handy. You can use a Ziploc bag. It doesn't really matter. Let's go ahead and do all these. Alright, now that I have done my soaking of my paper and I put it into a little plastic baggie, we can get ready to start prepping my plate. We're going to do that here. I'm going to adjust here. So I'm just going to set down the paper like this. And here's the plate. And I'm going to wear gloves while doing this because this ink gets everywhere for Akua. It's just really, really good at getting to places that you don't want it to get to. So I'm going to roll up my sleeves and I'm going to wear gloves. Just going to take a little bit of this on a spoon and just stick it right onto the plate like so. And I can worry about leaving this ink out, like I said with Akua, because it doesn't really so you want to evenly coat the entire thing right here with the ink. And I'm going to take it and try and squeegee it back into here. You don't want to overdo it. I probably used too much to begin with. Now is where the tarlatan comes into. I'm going to take the tarlatan like so. And I'm just going to kind of ball it up so I get like a nice little, almost a flat surface, and I can hold it onto it like this. Then I'm going to put my plate like so, holding it like this. And I'm going to take the tarlatan, like this, rubbing it. Oop. It's a little easier when it's not plastic, believe it or not. When it's a metal plate, they're a little bit more dimensionally stable. So you're just going to sit here and go like this the entire time. And one of the things about Drypoint is you'll most likely always have some kind of tone with your image here. You want to make sure you work it into the areas like right here where there's definitely things at. You can see, like I said, this stuff likes to get everywhere, especially when you're doing this type of process. Just move it in circular motions. And you're going to get most of it off, as you can see here. That's after you've done that with the turletin, because the turletin's going to get most of it. We're going to take newsprint. Or in the old days, you would have used an old phone book, believe it or not, because they're made of newsprint and they're smooth. And you want, like I said, smooth newsprint like this. I'm going to take my newsprint very carefully. I'm kind of working in a motion like this, not pressing into the design too much. And this is going to help clean up my plate a little bit more. You can see, like right here, I'm getting off some of the tone. If I'm not near the image, it's okay to push. And you just keep rotating it around and use it to clean off your image. And like I said, this can get very messy. Some of this is on the back side of the plate, which is what makes this so difficult. And then you would just throw this piece of newsprint out. You go through newsprint like crazy. It is not something that you do, right? Or it's not something you're going to keep. It is a... This is something you throw out, definitely. Next time I do this, I am not going to use nearly as much ink for the next one. Alright, so I've gone ahead and I brought my press over, and I can feel that I do not have enough pressure on here. So I'm going to evenly turn both of these, which I can tell is not even anymore. This is one of the things I dislike about these inexpensive presses. They're a little bit more of a pain in the butt to use. So I'm going to back these up all the way. I'm only wearing one glove because when I touch the paper, I don't want to have ink all over. My gloves are just horrid. So as you can see, now this is backed up all the way. Now it's backed up all the way, I'm going to put it down, and I want to do this evenly. I mean, if this was a much higher end press, this would take forever because the threads are normally much finer. Okay, that's too much. Probably right about there. That feels about right. Although, of course, it can be hard to say until I actually do the printing. So, I got this here. I'm going to pull our blanket up, and I've got some of this grip right here because it helps. I'm going to take our... I'm actually going to take a piece of newsprint. Set it down on here. That will help keep from getting ink all over everything. I'm going to take one of my sheets of paper here. I'm just going to set it right on top here. It's probably crooked. Doesn't really matter to me because it's going to be framed anyways, but you might want to try and keep it straight. I'm actually going to take another piece of newsprint and put it on top. I'm actually going to put a couple more sheets on there. Mostly because this thing does not have a catcher. And a catcher is a very, very, very thin piece of felt that sits on top of everything. And what it does is it catches all the paper sizing. So you save your thick, expensive blankets right here from doing that. So then we're just going to run our press through. And of course, I did not clamp it down like I was supposed to. This is definitely a pain in the butt right now. Still getting used to this press, like I said. Oh my lord. I know I got some more clamps. I had more clamps. I'm going to take this one and put it on this end. That will help. Let's use my right arm. Oh boy, that was hard and difficult because there was a lot of pressure there. Oops. I'm going to peel off the... Oh, we need to go back. We need to go forward a little bit more. Peel it off there. And as you can see, that's my dry point. And like I said, it gets the edges here. So if I used more pressure, it looks like I'm using the right amount of pressure too, which is what's nice. I do not need to increase my pressure. It did it right the first time. And this process does lend itself very well to very sketching and cross-hatching and things like that. Alright, and then as you can see, here's my plate. It still has some of the imagery. And then we will go ahead, re-ink this the same way, use the tarlatan. I can reuse the tarlatan I already have until it just gets to the point where it won't absorb any more ink. And then I'll throw that out. And then I'll dust it off with more newsprint. But I also wanted to say that this technique is not limited to just black and white. You can do color, as you can see here. And this one was, I did this one with roulettes and some scratching you can see here. The sky was done with a roulette, and the bottom was done with a roulette, but some of the other parts, I mean, this is a 5-color dry point. And I did it easily using the same plates and did everything that way. I had to be very careful about lining everything up. You can kind of see some of the edges here where everything didn't line up perfectly, but it looked good enough that it's okay. And I only did 12 of these. I did this one about 4 years ago. Wow, really? Was it 4 years ago? It's hard to believe. But like I said, you can do color. You can do multiple colors. It's just the registration is more of a pain in the butt. But I used the roulettes on here, as you can see here and right here. And this one was a certain pattern, and I just went in there and did it and scratched in the outline of everything I wanted and then filled it in with the roulette. And I got the darker tones here, not by applying more ink, but by using the roulette more, going back and forth more. And I did that when I was working at Daniel Smith and I had access to their big press, which was nice. I missed that press. I want that press myself. Oh, but I'll make do with this little thing. Well, everyone, that's Drypoint. I hope you learned something. And those of you who actually do these projects and want to attempt a dry point, you can do it without a press. You can do it by hand. I've heard of people using they use wooden spoons and they just apply a lot of pressure. I have my little handmade wooden Baron thing, which I find increases the pressure more than the spoon does. Because it's just 2 wooden pull knobs glued together with a little wooden rod in the center to keep it straight, and you just put that down and get the pressure. And if there's any other questions you have about Drypoint or any of the other processes or techniques I use, answer or put the questions down below. I will answer them. Until next time, everyone, I'll be seeing you. And remember, give me a thumbs up down below. You can always, and remember to subscribe so you can see new videos in the future. And also, if you really want to follow me along, you can follow me on my Twitter, my Tumblr, or my Instagram. Pretty much, they're all the same content. So if you follow one or the other, you will find it somehow or way. Till next time, everyone. See ya. Bye.